Ancient engineers built machines we still cannot recreate today. These lost marvels of antiquity force us to question the entire story of human progress. This journey will reveal why our most advanced science falls short of their forgotten genius. You will discover a hidden history of innovation that could redefine our understanding of technology itself. How did a 2,000-year-old device predict eclipses with perfect accuracy? And why did a fire that burned on water vanish from history without a trace? What does it truly mean for knowledge to be lost forever? We often picture the ancient world as a time of simple beginnings, yet this era was in fact a vibrant hub of sophisticated engineering. These were not crude workshops but centers of high technology, where master artisans and brilliant thinkers achieved mechanical wonders that sometimes eclipsed even the knowledge of the medieval period that followed. Historians like James Burke have pointed out that the innovative spark of antiquity often burned brighter than what came 1,000 years later. These were not simple levers and pulleys, but complex devices that wove together advanced principles of mechanics, precision hydraulics, and perhaps even energy sources we have yet to identify. Their existence is recorded in faded texts and fragmented artifacts, yet their full operation remains just out of reach. So were these machines the products of a knowledge so profound it was lost to the ages, or are they merely the stuff of exaggerated legend, stories that grew in the telling? To find an answer, we must turn our attention to one of the most famous and enduring mysteries, a device so advanced it seems to defy its own time. One such device was pulled from the seafloor near a tiny Greek island in the year 1901. Sponge divers, feeling their way through the dim waters, brushed against the shape of a corroded lump encased in rock. It was brought to the surface with the rest of the shipwreck's artifacts, a lump of greenish metal that seemed unremarkable at first. For nearly half a century, it sat in a museum storage room, a curious but misunderstood object. Then, painstaking cleaning revealed the truth. It was not a single piece, but a complex assembly of interlocking bronze gears, a mechanical puzzle of staggering intricacy. This was the Antikythera Mechanism. Researchers like Derek de Solla Price dedicated their lives to understanding it. He would later call it a calendar computer of a sophistication not seen again until the 14th century. This was not merely a navigational tool, it was a miniature cosmos of brass and bronze. Its finely toothed gears, some with triangular teeth cut with astonishing precision, modeled the erratic motions of the sky. It could predict the positions of the sun and moon, forecast lunar and solar eclipses, and even track the cycles of the ancient Olympic Games. It was, in essence, a 2,000-year-old analog computer. The genius of its design is matched only by the mystery of its creation. How did its makers achieve such precision without the benefit of industrial lathes or microscopic cutters? The gears had to be planned and cut to exacting ratios, their teeth shaped and spaced to translate celestial mathematics into physical rotation. This was not simple metalworking, it was a form of applied theoretical knowledge of the highest order. We can understand what it did, but the methods used to design and fabricate it remain a profound enigma. This single device forces us to reconsider the entire technological landscape of its era, suggesting a level of mechanical artistry that history somehow forgot. And as we move from the intricate clockwork of the stars to the raw power of the battlefield, we encounter another machine that defies simple explanation. While the Antikythera Mechanism calculated the heavens, another ancient mind was harnessing the fundamental power of steam. In the 1st century, the brilliant engineer Hero of Alexandria described a device that seems to leap centuries ahead of its time. He called it an eolipile, Picture a simple metal sphere mounted on a boiler. As the water within heated, steam would rush out through two bent tubes on opposite sides, causing the entire sphere to spin with surprising force. It was, in its essence, a primitive steam turbine. Hero documented this and many other incredible automata in his work Pneumatica, a collection that reads like a catalogue of ancient wonders. He wrote of machines that could open temple doors automatically, power singing bird automatons, and even create the illusion of miracles for worshippers, all driven by clever combinations of steam, air, and water pressure. We can, of course, build a working model of the Eolipile today. It spins, it hisses, it demonstrates the principle perfectly, but this is where the real mystery begins. The fundamental science was clearly understood. The potential for converting heat into motion was right there, spinning in a bronze sphere. So why did this spark not ignite an industrial revolution 2,000 years ago? Why was this powerful knowledge left as a temple curiosity, a fascinating toy, rather than being scaled up to drive machinery or propel vehicles? The answer seems to lie not in a lack of capability, but in a lack of context. The ancient world, for all its genius, did not have the pressing economic or social need to replace human and animal labor on a massive scale. The engine was a marvel, but it was a solution without a pressing problem. This pattern of a brilliant invention existing in isolation, disconnected from the world that could have used it to transform everything, is a haunting theme in the history of technology. And it finds perhaps its most dramatic expression in a weapon so potent its formula was lost for all time. This electrical enigma brings us to a humble clay jar, discovered in the dust of a 2,000-year-old Parthian village near Baghdad. In 1936, a museum assistant named Wilhelm Koenig was cataloging artifacts when he came across this peculiar object. It was a simple terracotta pot about the size of a man's fist, but its contents were anything but ordinary. Sealed inside with an asphalt plug was a rolled copper sheet forming a cylinder, and nestled within it an iron rod. The materials were deliberate, the assembly precise. Koenig, looking at this strange trio of clay, copper, and iron, proposed a radical idea. What if this was not a container for scrolls or sacred items, but an ancient electric cell? The theory was put to the test when researchers filled a replica jar with an acidic electrolyte, something as common as vinegar or grape juice. A small but measurable electric current flowed between the metal rods. It was not much power, perhaps 1 volt, but it was undeniable proof of principle. This simple device could generate electricity. The debate ignited immediately. Some archaeologists argued it was merely a sacred storage vessel, the iron and copper having ritual significance. But the electrochemical evidence was hard to ignore, leading to fascinating speculation about its actual use. Was it employed for electroplating, to deposit a thin layer of gold onto silver trinkets, a process that would require only a small electrical charge? Could it have been used in ancient medical practices, providing a mild shock for therapeutic purposes, a primitive form of electroacupuncture? Perhaps a cluster of these jars connected together could have produced a more significant charge. The true purpose of the Baghdad Battery remains one of history's most tantalizing puzzles. Its very existence forces a profound question. If this was indeed a battery, what does it say about the Parthian understanding of natural forces? They lived in a world without a theory of electrons or circuits, yet they may have stumbled upon a practical application for a fundamental power. This is the recurring theme of these lost machines. They represent islands of advanced practical knowledge, ideas that were born, used for a time, and then vanished, leaving only fragments behind. The battery stands as a quiet, unassuming challenge to our linear view of progress, suggesting that the path of discovery is not a straight line, but a winding road with many forgotten turns. And if a simple jar could hold such a secret, what other forces did the ancients learn to command, perhaps on a scale that is almost impossible to believe? From the silent potential of a clay jar, we turn to a weapon of roaring, undeniable power. The seas around Constantinople knew a unique terror, a fire that could not be quenched by water. It was called Greek fire, and for centuries it was the ultimate naval weapon of the Byzantine Empire. Imagine a fleet of enemy ships closing in on the great city walls, only to be met by a terrifying sight. From tubes mounted on the prows of Byzantine dromon warships, a stream of liquid would arc through the air. Upon contact, it would burst into flames, a fire so fierce it clung to the wooden hulls and sails, continuing to burn even as it floated on the waves. Water seemed only to feed its fury. The princess and historian Anna Komnene described its use in the 12th century, writing that this liquid fire was projected through tubes and that it was born and made manifest on the ships, a description that captures its shocking, almost supernatural appearance in battle. The psychological impact was as devastating as the physical damage, creating an aura of invincibility for the Byzantine navy. The exact formula for this incendiary mixture was a state secret of immense value, guarded so closely that its precise composition was lost to history. Modern chemists and historians have tried for years to recreate it. They have experimented with recipes based on crude petroleum, pine resin, and even quicklime, a substance that reacts violently with water to generate intense heat. Some mixtures can burn on water, others can be projected, but none have successfully replicated the full set of properties described in ancient texts. None can achieve that perfect, terrifying combination of being ignited upon contact with water, sticking to surfaces like napalm, and burning with a ferocity that defied any conventional method of extinguishing it. What secret ingredient or precise process did the Byzantine chemists possess? Was it a specific type of crude oil from wells around the Black Sea, distilled in a way we have not yet discovered? Did they understand the catalytic properties of certain minerals to create a self-igniting compound? The knowledge was so critical to the empire's survival that it was likely known only to a handful of individuals, perhaps even a single family. Its loss demonstrates how a technology, no matter how powerful, can vanish when its custodians disappear, taking their secrets to the grave. This was not a machine of gears and levers, but a chemical engine of war, and its disappearance marks one of the most profound losses from the ancient world. Inside the shadowed sanctuaries of Egyptian temples, the stone gods themselves were said to come to life. Herodotus, the Greek traveler, walked these halls in the 5th century before Christ and wrote of witnessing the impossible. He described colossal statues that could rise from their thrones under their own power, their movements accompanied by a disembodied voice that issued pronouncements. To the faithful, this was a true miracle, a divine manifestation. To the priests, it may have been the pinnacle of sacred stagecraft, a secret technology designed to inspire awe and reinforce their authority. Modern Egyptologists studying the intricate layouts of these temples have found tantalizing clues. They point to hidden chambers behind the walls, narrow priestly passageways that could have allowed operators to remain unseen. The movement of a massive stone arm could have been achieved with a simple system of counterweights and levers, its joints concealed within the sculpted folds of a ceremonial kilt. A speaking tube cleverly integrated into the stonework could carry a priest's whispered words directly to the statue's mouth, making it seem as if the god itself was speaking. We can reconstruct the basic principles, yet no modern replica has ever captured the sheer scale and psychological impact described in the ancient accounts. The true genius was not in a single gadget, but in the complete orchestration of the environment. The dim light from flickering oil lamps, the scent of incense, the profound silence of the inner sanctum broken by the groan of moving stone, all of it was part of the machine. This forces us to wonder, were these priests merely clever illusionists, or were they engineers of the human soul, using mechanical principles to bridge the gap between the mortal and the divine? Their work represents a perfect fusion of ritual and engineering, a lost art where belief was the most critical component. This seamless blending of the spiritual and the mechanical finds a strange and powerful echo far to the east, in a material so delicate its secret was lost for a millennium. The same ingenuity that animated temple statues also left its mark on the earth itself, but on a scale so vast it can only be seen from the heavens. Scattered across the high desert plains of southern Peru, the Nazca Lines form a sprawling gallery of geometric shapes and giant animals. A hummingbird with wings outstretched spans over 300 feet. A spider, a monkey, and a whale are all rendered with clean, continuous lines that march for miles across the arid plateau. These geoglyphs were created by the Nazca people, who inhabited the region from around 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after. The mystery is not so much why they were made, though theories range from astronomical calendars to ritual pathways, but how. How did a culture without the wheel, without draft animals, and certainly without flight, manage to design and execute such precise, massive figures that have endured for 2 millennia? The German mathematician Maria Reit devoted her life to this puzzle, living in the desert for decades to map and protect the lines. She championed the idea that the Nazca used remarkably simple tools. Her theory suggests that small, carefully planned models could be scaled up using a system of ropes and stakes. A central cord fixed to a post might act as a giant compass for drawing perfect circles, while long ropes could establish straight lines by sighting along wooden stakes. This seems plausible, even elegant in its simplicity. Yet when modern teams have tried to replicate these methods, they run into profound difficulties. The scale is one challenge, but the accuracy is another. The lines are astonishingly straight over long distances, and the curves of the animal figures are fluid and precise. Maintaining such perfect proportions while working on the ground, unable to see the full image, would require an incredible grasp of geometry and consistent units of measurement. It would also demand a monumental social effort, a community organized with the single purpose of creating an artwork for the sky. Can we truly believe that simple ropes and stakes were enough? Or is it possible the Nazca possessed a form of surveying knowledge that we have yet to comprehend? The lines remain etched into the desert, a testament to a command of geography that feels almost like a machine for drawing on the planet itself. This mastery over the landscape makes one wonder what other civilizations could achieve when they turned their minds to moving the very earth. The Pantheon's dome has sheltered Rome for nearly 2,000 years, a perfect hemisphere of concrete that has defied earthquakes, weather, and the slow decay of centuries. Modern engineers look upon it with a mixture of awe and professional frustration, because our own concrete structures often show significant deterioration within just 50 years. The Roman formula was fundamentally different and better in many ways. They mixed their concrete with volcanic ash known as pozzolana and slaked lime. This was not a passive mixture. When seawater seeped into the material, it triggered a long-term chemical reaction. The water would slowly dissolve the volcanic crystals and the lime, allowing new, incredibly strong minerals to grow in their place. These minerals, like a naturally forming glue, would fill in any tiny cracks that appeared, making the concrete actually grow stronger over time. Researchers at universities around the world have used advanced microscopes to study ancient samples, watching this self-healing process in action. We know the key ingredients, but the secret lies in the precise ratios, the specific type of volcanic ash, and the exact mixing and curing conditions the Romans used. It was a recipe, and we have lost the instructions. This loss is more than a historical curiosity. It is an environmental dilemma. Modern concrete production is a major source of carbon emissions, whereas the Roman process was far less energy-intensive and created a material that lasted for millennia with minimal repair. So why did this superior knowledge vanish? The fall of the Roman Empire was not a single event but a slow fragmentation of trade routes, specialized guilds, and centralized knowledge. The artisans who held the nuanced understanding of how to select the right ash and mix it under the correct conditions were scattered, their craft no longer supported by a vast, building-obsessed state. The formula was not stolen or destroyed. It was simply forgotten piece by piece until it faded into the landscape of the structures it helped create. This pattern of a superior technology being lost to social collapse finds a haunting parallel far to the east. In a material so legendary, its very existence was debated for centuries. A crusader's sword, hardened in European forges, could shatter against a blade that seemed to flow like water. These were the legendary swords of Damascus, weapons of such renown that their very name became a byword for cutting perfection. Forged in the Middle East from specially imported ingots of Indian wood steel, they were instantly recognizable by the swirling, watery patterns etched into their surface, a mesmerizing fingerprint of their unique internal structure. But their beauty was secondary to their performance. Historical accounts tell of blades so sharp and resilient they could slice a silk scarf floating in the air, and so flexible they could bend from hilt to tip without breaking. This was not mere folklore. Modern metallurgical analysis of surviving artifacts confirms these blades possessed carbon nanotubes and cementite nanowires within their steel, a nanoscale architecture that gave them their legendary combination of a razor-sharp edge and incredible toughness. We know the source material was wood steel, and we can see the microscopic results, but the transformative process between the raw ingot and the finished masterpiece has been completely lost. The secret died out in the 18th century, and despite our advanced technology, we cannot truly recreate it. Modern smiths can produce pattern-welded steel that mimics the look, but these replicas consistently lack the legendary durability and edge retention. The mystery lies in the specific alchemy of the forge. Theories suggest that trace elements like vanadium in the original Indian ore, combined with an incredibly precise and controlled cycle of heating, hammering, and slow cooling, allowed the carbon in the steel to form its unique, super-strong microstructures. It was likely a ritual of temperature and timing, a dance of heat and hammer passed down from master to apprentice, never written down. When the chain of masters was broken, the dance was forgotten. What does it truly mean for an art to be so fragile, for knowledge so powerful to be held not in books, but only in the practiced hands of a few? This profound loss of craftsmanship forces us to look for echoes of such genius in other cultures, where metal was shaped not into weapons of war, but into objects of impossible precision. The enduring perfection of Damascus steel finds a strange and silent companion standing in a courtyard in India. It is the iron pillar of Delhi, a 7-meter-tall column of wrought iron that was forged over 1,600 years ago. For 16 centuries it has endured monsoons, scorching heat, and humid air, yet its surface remains remarkably smooth, showing only the faintest traces of rust. This is not simply an old object, it is a direct challenge to our understanding of ancient metallurgy. Modern corrosion scientists have subjected the pillar to every test imaginable, discovering its unique secret lies in its composition. The iron is unusually pure, with a high percentage of phosphorus and a low amount of other impurities like sulfur and manganese. This specific recipe, when exposed to the air, encourages the formation of a thin, invisible, and incredibly stable protective layer called mesowite. This film acts as a shield, preventing oxygen and moisture from eating into the metal beneath. We understand the chemistry in principle, yet we have failed to replicate this passive rust proofing in large-scale iron structures today. The problem is twofold. First, the pillar's iron is of a purity that was extraordinarily rare for its time, suggesting a smelting and forging process that we do not fully comprehend. Second, modern steel production deliberately removes phosphorus because it makes large-scale castings brittle. The ancient Indian blacksmiths somehow mastered a technique that used this very element to create a protective barrier, achieving a result that our own industrial methods cannot safely duplicate. How did they produce such pure iron in the first place, and how did they possess the foresight to use phosphorus as a guardian instead of a flaw? This was not an accident, but a sophisticated application of materials science that has stood the test of time in the most literal sense. Such mastery over the physical world makes one wonder if other civilizations applied similar genius not to objects that endure, but to devices that measured the passage of time itself. The relentless march of time demanded a master to measure it, and in 11th century China, an engineer named Su Song answered the call with a machine that was a city in miniature. His astronomical clock tower, rising over 30 feet high, was not merely a timepiece but a mechanical universe driven by the patient force of flowing water. At its heart was a revolutionary water-driven escapement, a device that transformed a continuous pour into a series of measured, ticking motions. This steady pulse powered a complex symphony of gears and chains that animated the entire structure. On its top level, a bronze armillary sphere, a skeleton globe of rings representing celestial circles, tracked the sun, moon, and known stars with astonishing accuracy. Below, mannequins emerged from hidden doors to ring bells and gongs, announcing the hours and quarters with automated precision. Historical texts like Su Song's own Xin Yi Xiang Fa Yao detail the construction with meticulous care, listing the dimensions and functions of its components. Yet these words are a map without the territory. We know what the machine did, but the secrets of its soul, the precise ratios of its internal gearing, and the exact methods for controlling water pressure to ensure a perfectly constant flow, have been lost to the centuries. While water clocks were common across the ancient world, Su Song's tower was in a class of its own, an early planetarium that married celestial observation to public timekeeping on a scale never before attempted. Consider the mathematical genius required to translate the irregular rhythms of the heavens into the perfectly regular turning of gears. This was an engine of synchronized time, a physical manifestation of a cosmic order, all powered by nothing more than a trickle of water. How did they achieve such seamless coordination between the heavens above and the mechanisms below, a harmony we struggle to replicate even with our digital tools? Such profound command over measurement inevitably turns our gaze upward to machines that did not just track the stars, but sought to capture their very essence. Roman warships approached the harbor of Syracuse with a single purpose: to breach its legendary defenses. They were met not by volleys of arrows, but by a wall of polished bronze. According to accounts written centuries later, the city's greatest mind, Archimedes, had devised a weapon of pure light. He arranged a series of large mirrors, possibly polished shields held by soldiers, to focus the intense Mediterranean sunlight onto the wooden hulls of the invading fleet. A single point of concentrated heat grew unbearably hot until the ships, it is said, burst into flames from a distance. This is the story of the Archimedes Heat Ray, a tale that lives in the hazy border between historical account and scientific legend. The core question is not whether concentrating sunlight can start a fire. Any child with a magnifying glass can prove that. The question is one of scale and practicality. Could such a system have been effectively deployed against moving, pitching warships in the chaos of a naval siege? Historians are deeply divided, with many dismissing it as a dramatic flourish added by later chroniclers to burnish the reputation of a genius. To settle the debate, modern scientists have turned to experimentation. A team from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology took on the challenge, constructing a replica using 127 polished mirrors. Their initial tests succeeded in charring a stationary wooden ship model, but only after a long period of perfect, unwavering sunlight and precise alignment. The conditions had to be ideal, a luxury rarely afforded in the smoke and motion of battle. This is the heart of the feasibility problem. Aligning multiple mirrors to track a single point on a moving target hundreds of feet away through the haze and heat shimmer of the sea would have been a monumental coordination challenge. Even a slight miscalculation in the angle of a single mirror would scatter the concentrated energy, rendering the entire array useless. So was it a real weapon of war, or a powerful myth born from the terrifying reputation of a man who could seemingly bend the laws of physics to his will? Perhaps the truth is a compromise. It may not have been a primary weapon for sinking ships, but a terrifying psychological tool, a dazzling display of scientific supremacy designed to confuse and intimidate an enemy. The very idea, however, reveals an ancient ambition to command the fundamental forces of nature, turning the sun itself into an instrument of defense. This drive to harness ambient energy to make the environment itself a part of the machine finds its ultimate expression in structures so vast they seem to be part of the landscape. The ambition to command the sun itself pales before the dream of a light that never dies. Across cultures and centuries, stories persist of perpetual lamps, devices said to burn for hundreds of years within sealed tombs and forgotten temples, defying every known law of fuel and consumption. Early explorers and writers left tantalizing accounts. The Christian theologian Saint Augustine himself described a lamp in a temple dedicated to Venus that neither wind nor water could extinguish, suggesting a flame that existed beyond ordinary combustion. Similar legends followed the opening of ancient burial sites, where adventurers claimed to find chambers illuminated by a soft, steady glow that vanished the moment the seal was broken, as if the very air they admitted snuffed out a centuries-old miracle. The question is not whether these lights existed, but what they could possibly have been. Modern science offers a few speculative pathways. Could ancient alchemists have discovered long-lasting phosphorescent materials, chemicals that absorb and slowly re-emit light over vast periods, creating a dim but enduring luminescence? Or is it possible they stumbled upon a form of low-energy plasma, excited by some unknown natural force within the sealed environment, producing a cold light that required no traditional fuel? We have created glow-in-the-dark paints and even certain electrochemical cells that produce light, but nothing that can sustain illumination for decades, let alone the centuries described in these legends. Every attempt at recreation falls short, either in duration, brightness, or stability. So were these stories merely symbolic myths, allegories for eternal knowledge, or did they point to a genuine, lost principle of energy harvesting, a way to tap into an ambient source we have yet to identify? The quest for a perpetual lamp is ultimately a search for endless energy, a dream that continues to captivate us today, and its echoes can be found in devices that seemed not just to conserve energy, but to create motion from nothing at all. The same principles that gave statues a voice may have also given stones the power to fly. Legends from across the ancient world speak of builders who commanded sound itself, using it to lift massive blocks into place as if they were weightless. Tibetan monks recount stories of their ancestors using enormous trumpets and drums, not for ceremony but for construction. The specific, resonant frequencies produced by these instruments were said to cancel the pull of gravity, allowing stones to travel through the air for great distances before settling gently onto a growing wall. Similar tales echo from the builders of the Egyptian pyramids and the massive stone heads on Easter Island, all hinting at a lost knowledge of vibrational physics. Modern science confirms that acoustic levitation is real, but the scale is humbling. In laboratory settings, scientists use precise speakers to generate standing waves of sound. Tiny droplets of water or small plastic beads can be suspended in mid-air, trapped in the nodes where the sound pressure cancels out gravity. It is a fascinating demonstration, yet it operates on a scale of millimeters. The energy required to levitate even a 1-kilogram object would be immense, and controlling such a force in the open air, with all its variables of wind and temperature, presents challenges we cannot yet overcome. So how could ancient cultures have possibly scaled this phenomenon to move stones weighing many tons? Could they have discovered a specific resonant frequency for certain types of rock, a harmonic key that effectively made the stone neutral to the Earth's pull, requiring only a sustained acoustic push to guide it? The gap between our tiny, controlled laboratory successes and these legendary construction feats is a chasm we have not yet bridged. This acoustic mystery compels us to ask if we are missing an entire chapter in the physics of vibration, a chapter the ancients might have used to write their grandest stories in stone. And if sound could truly move mountains, what other forgotten principles of motion might have been used to traverse the world? The open ocean was a featureless gray under a sky choked with clouds. Yet Viking longships cut across these waters with a confidence that defies logic, reaching islands like Iceland and even the coast of North America centuries before Columbus. Their secret may have been a tool as elegant as it was mysterious, a crystal known as a sunstone. Norse sagas speak of a solarstein, a stone used to locate the sun on overcast days or even after sunset. Imagine a ship's captain holding a piece of transparent calcite up to the sky. By looking through the crystal and rotating it slowly, they could detect subtle changes in the polarization of daylight, patterns invisible to the naked eye. The crystal would appear to glow brighter or darker depending on its alignment with the sun's hidden position, revealing a bright patch in the sky that pointed directly to the solar disk. Modern experiments with minerals like cordierite and calcite have proven the principle works with remarkable accuracy. A study from a Hungarian university demonstrated that trained users could determine the sun's location within a few degrees, even when it was well below the horizon. This was not magic but applied atmospheric optics. The challenge, and the reason this remains a lost machine, is that no such crystal has ever been found in a definitive navigational context aboard a Viking shipwreck. We have the sagas and we have the science, but we lack the smoking gun. Recreating the technique for a real sea voyage reveals another layer of difficulty. It requires not just the right crystal, but a deeply ingrained skill, an intuitive feel for interpreting the subtle shifts in light through the stone while standing on a pitching deck. This was knowledge held in the hands and the eyes, passed from navigator to apprentice. Its loss was the loss of a practiced art, a sensory technology that enabled one of history's greatest expansions. With such mastery over the open sea, one wonders what other secrets of transport were hidden in the ancient world, waiting on land for their own rediscovery. The vast, silent deserts where ancient myths were born also hold carvings that seem to scream of impossible futures. etched into temple stones and preserved in epic poems, are images and descriptions that defy simple explanation. In the ancient Sanskrit texts of India, we find detailed accounts of Vimanas, celestial chariots described as flying palaces of metal and fire. The epic Mahabharata speaks of these craft with startling specificity, mentioning their roaring engines, their precise aerial maneuvers, and even the terrible weapons they carried, narratives that to some modern ears sound less like mythology and more like technical manuals. Across the world, the biblical book of Ezekiel describes a magnificent and bewildering vision, a great cloud with flashing fire, and within it, something resembling 4 living creatures connected to interlocking wheels, a wheel within a wheel, their rims full of eyes moving in any direction without turning. To the Swiss author Erich von Däniken, these were not visions or symbols but literal accounts. In his book Chariots of the Gods, he became the most famous proponent of the ancient astronaut theory, arguing that these descriptions are proof of extraterrestrial visitors, that our ancestors were simply documenting the advanced technology of their celestial guests, mistaking astronauts for gods. This idea captured the public imagination, suggesting a hidden history written in our oldest stories. Yet mainstream archaeology and history offer a powerful counterargument. They see these texts through a different lens, not as literal reports but as profound symbolic language. The Vimanas, they argue, are spiritual vehicles for the gods, metaphors for the soul's journey or the power of a king, not blueprints for aircraft. Ezekiel's wheel, a central part of a magnificent and complex vision of God's throne, is interpreted as a symbolic representation of divine omnipresence and omniscience, its eyes representing God's all-seeing knowledge, its multi-directional movement his boundless power. Controversy lies in this fundamental divide between literal and symbolic interpretation. Could these stories be the garbled echoes of real, lost technologies, memories of human achievements so advanced they later seemed divine? Or are we, in our technologically saturated age, simply projecting our own world onto their poetic and spiritual one, mistaking their metaphors for our machines? This speculative frontier forces us to question the very nature of ancient testimony. It is a realm not of physical gears and levers, but of words and images whose true meaning is locked in the past. While we may never prove a Vimana could fly, the very persistence of these descriptions challenges the boundaries of what we believe was conceivable, pushing our inquiry from the skies of myth back to the solid ground of mechanical reality, where a different kind of mystery was taking shape. Ancient Egypt's architectural marvels rest upon a hidden foundation of mathematical genius. Within the Rhind mathematical papyrus, a scroll dating to around 1550 before the Common Era, we find not just simple arithmetic, but a sophisticated system of problem-solving that feels strangely modern. This ancient document, meticulously penned by a scribe named Ahmose, presents a series of algorithms for tasks like dividing bread and calculating areas. These are not just answers but step-by-step procedures, a recipe for logic that echoes the very structure of a computer program. One of its most fascinating features is the nearly exclusive use of unit fractions. Instead of writing 2/5, an Egyptian mathematician would express it as 1/3 plus 1/15. This seems cumbersome to us, but for them, it was a streamlined system that worked with elegant efficiency. The papyrus even contains an incredibly accurate approximation for the area of a circle, a calculation that implicitly uses a value for pi close to 3.16. Modern mathematicians who study it, like Elena Robson, have noted that while we can follow each step of these 3,000-year-old calculations, the underlying thought process remains elusive. We see the instructions, but we have lost the intuition. What mental models did these scribes employ that made this system feel natural and obvious? How did they visualize fractions and geometric shapes in a way that made their methods not just workable, but brilliantly effective? This was more than just math. It was a form of computational thinking perfectly adapted to its time and tools. Their prowess with numbers and geometry was the invisible engine behind the pyramids and the temples, a silent partner to every mechanical wonder they created. This same drive to calculate and build with precision found another expression far to the north, where an entire civilization encoded its genius not in scrolls, but in the very stones of their landscape. The Antikythera Mechanism was not a singular miracle, but perhaps the sole survivor of an entire class of machines. Ancient texts whisper of other, equally sophisticated devices that modeled the cosmos with moving parts. The Roman orator Cicero, writing in the 1st century before the Common Era, described a bronze sphere constructed by the great Archimedes himself. This device, looted from Syracuse and brought to Rome, was no simple ornament. Cicero wrote that it beautifully displayed the motions of the sun, moon, and the 5 known planets, replicating their irregular journeys across the sky with a turning sphere. It was, in his view, a greater achievement than merely observing the real heavens, for it captured divine reason within a human-made object. This was not just a planetarium, it was a philosophical argument rendered in bronze. Similar references to intricate orreries and moving celestial models appear in other writings, suggesting a tradition of building these analog computers. The Antikythera device, then, is our one tangible piece of evidence, a corroded clue that confirms these literary accounts were not mere fantasies. Its existence in a shipwreck bound for Rome hints that such mechanisms were valuable trade items, perhaps commissioned by wealthy patrons or scholarly institutions. This forces a profound question upon us. If this technology was known, even if only to a select few, why did it not evolve and spread? Why was the spark of mechanical computation snuffed out for over 1,000 years? The answer may lie in the very fabric of that society. These were masterpieces of art and science, but they existed in a world without mass production, a world where knowledge was fragile and held in small, isolated circles. The loss was not just of a device, but of an entire direction for human thought. This pattern of a brilliant technological path being abandoned finds a powerful parallel not in the stars, but in the earth, with a civilization that learned to command water on a truly monumental scale. Beneath the sun-baked plains of ancient Persia, an unseen river flowed. This was not a river of surface water, but a meticulously engineered subterranean network known as the Qanat. For thousands of years, these hidden canals delivered life-giving water across vast, arid distances, all without a single pump. The system was a masterpiece of passive engineering, relying solely on the unerring pull of gravity. Its construction began with the discovery of a water-bearing layer, an aquifer, at the foot of a mountain. From this source, laborers would dig a gently sloping tunnel back towards their village or farmland. But how did they ensure this tunnel maintained its perfect, minuscule gradient over miles of darkness? The answer lay in a series of vertical shafts, dug at regular intervals from the surface down to meet the tunnel's path. These shafts served a dual purpose, providing ventilation and, more critically, allowing for the precise removal of excavated soil and the continuous verification of the tunnel's slope. Using nothing more than simple sighting tools and water levels, these ancient surveyors achieved a long-range accuracy that still impresses modern engineers. Historians note that some of these Qanats have remained in continuous operation for nearly 3,000 years, a staggering testament to the foresight and skill of their builders. We fully grasp the underlying principle, yet the practical challenge of replicating their work is immense. How did they survey the land with such exactitude, ensuring the water would flow at just the right pace, neither too fast to cause erosion nor too slow to stagnate across such immense distances. The true secret may have been a form of cumulative, hands-on knowledge, a feel for the land passed down through generations of well diggers. This was not a technology built in a day, but one refined over centuries, a slow, persistent conversation between human ingenuity and the geology of the Earth. The Kanat stands as a quiet, enduring monument to a civilization that learned to harvest not just water, but the very force of gravity itself, turning it into a tool for survival. This mastery over natural forces to power a civilization inevitably leads us to wonder about smaller, more personal marvels, devices designed not to water fields, but to capture the whispers of the wind. Hero of Alexandria, the same mind that harnessed steam, also composed music from the very air. His writings detail a wind-powered organ, an instrument that played itself without a human musician in sight. At its heart was a simple but brilliant mechanism. A wind wheel, much like a horizontal fan, was mounted where it could catch the breeze. As the wind turned the wheel, it drove a set of pistons and cylinders that acted as an air pump. This pump then forced a steady stream of air into the pipes of the organ, producing a continuous, haunting note for as long as the wind blew. Hero's own text, Pneumatica, describes its purpose for temples or theaters, a divine or dramatic effect achieved through pure engineering. The concept is clear enough that small, tabletop models can and have been constructed. They work in a stiff, constant breeze, but the challenge of a full-scale, reliably musical instrument has never been met. The natural wind is fickle, gusting and fading without warning. How could such a device maintain a consistent air pressure to produce a stable, pleasant tone rather than a series of unpredictable squawks and sighs? The engineering hurdle is immense, requiring a sophisticated system of valves and reservoirs to smooth out the inconsistent power source. This raises a deeper question about its true purpose. Was this automated organ merely a theatrical spectacle, a clever toy to amaze temple visitors? Or was it, like his Eolipile, a profound testbed, an exploration of how to capture the chaotic energy of the wind and transform it into a controlled, useful force? It stands as a beautiful fusion of art and science, a machine that sang with a voice borrowed from the sky, and its elusive performance reminds us that the ancients were not just building devices, they were learning to conduct the symphony of nature itself. This mastery over invisible forces leads us from the music of the air to a device that captured the mind's own hidden light. Deep within the Chinese imperial court rolled a chariot crowned with a jade figurine, its arm perpetually stretched toward the south. This was no mystical totem, but a mechanical marvel known as the South-Pointing Chariot, documented in texts from the 3rd century of the Common Era. No matter how the chariot turned or twisted on its journey, the delicate figure on top, guided by an intricate system of hidden gears, would slowly swing back to its true orientation. Its alleged purpose was practical navigation, ensuring that armies and emissaries could maintain their bearing through featureless deserts or confusing terrain, long before the magnetic compass was widely used. The secret to this seemingly magical behavior was a brilliant application of differential gearing. The wheels of the chariot were connected to the figure through a complex assembly of gears. When the chariot moved in a straight line, the gears moved in unison. But when it turned, the difference in rotation between the left and right wheels was automatically calculated by the gear train, causing the figure to rotate in the opposite direction by just the right amount to cancel out the turn and keep it pointing south. Modern engineers who have attempted to build replicas based on the ancient descriptions, like those at universities in Beijing, express profound admiration for the conceptual genius. Yet they also hit a wall of practical difficulty. Achieving the consistent, flawless accuracy described in the texts is nearly impossible without the modern luxury of precision milled gears and ball bearings. The slightest imperfection in a hand-forged gear tooth or the accumulation of friction in the wooden mechanism would introduce tiny errors that would compound over a long journey, leaving the figure pointing in a gradually worsening wrong direction. This leads many historians to suspect that the chariot's true value may have been as much symbolic as practical. It was a dazzling demonstration of imperial ingenuity, a physical representation of the emperor's power to impose order upon chaos. Yet the sheer intellectual leap required to conceive of such a system remains breathtaking. It forces us to wonder where else this same innovative spirit was applied, solving problems we have yet to even uncover. This quest for perfect mechanical guidance finds a strange echo in another directional puzzle, one that relies not on complex gears, but on the silent alignment of massive stones. While the south-pointing chariot relied on intricate gears, another civilization charted a course across the planet's greatest expanse using nothing but the human mind. For centuries, Polynesian voyagers navigated the vast Pacific Ocean, discovering and settling islands scattered across millions of square miles of open water. They accomplished these epic journeys without a single compass, sextant, or map as we know them. Their vessel was the entire natural world, a living instrument they learned to read with breathtaking precision. These master navigators, known as PWO, committed a celestial map to memory. They knew the precise rising and setting points of hundreds of stars, using them as fixed compass points in the dark sky. But their knowledge went far beyond the stars. They learned to discern subtle patterns in ocean swells, feeling the way a distant island would deflect and bend the deep sea currents, a sensation transmitted through the hull of their canoe. They watched the flight paths of specific seabirds at dusk, knowing which species would always return to land, revealing the direction of an unseen shore. They could even detect the faint, oily shimmer of a lagoon reflecting on the underside of distant clouds. This was not a collection of separate facts, but a deeply integrated, intuitive system. Modern practitioners like the Hawaiian navigator Nainoa Thompson have dedicated their lives to reviving these techniques, sailing traditional double-hulled canoes across ancient routes using only these ancestral ways. He speaks of the immense mental discipline required, of holding a mental image of the canoe's position for weeks at a time, constantly updating it based on the feel of the waves and the march of the stars. Yet even these heroic efforts to reclaim the past acknowledge a profound loss. The full, nuanced depth of knowledge held by the greatest PWO is gone. It was an oral tradition passed down through generations in songs, chants, and direct mentorship, and the chain was broken by colonization and the rise of modern technology. We can learn the star paths and the bird names, but can we ever truly recover the instinct, the gut feeling for the sea that guided them to a speck of land after a month on the open ocean? How did they achieve such staggering geographic precision without ever writing down a single coordinate? This was a biological machine, a computer of the mind honed by generations of experience, and its loss demonstrates that the most sophisticated technology can sometimes be written not in metal, but in living memory. This mastery of natural systems through intuition finds a parallel in a civilization that engineered its environment on a monumental scale, turning entire landscapes into machines for survival. This same genius for engineering the environment extends deep into the earth beneath our feet. In the heart of the Amazon rainforest, a civilization flourished not by conquering the jungle, but by transforming its very soil. They created terra preta, or black earth, a man-made super soil so fertile it remains productive centuries after its creators vanished. While the surrounding rainforest soil is typically thin, acidic, and nutrient-poor, these dark, rich patches are teeming with life. They are a complex recipe of charcoal, broken pottery, animal bones, manure, and compost, all fused together through a process we still do not fully understand. Modern soil scientists are captivated by its properties. Dr. Bruno Glaser, a leading researcher in geoecology, has studied these soils extensively, noting their incredible capacity to sequester carbon for thousands of years. The secret is not just in the ingredients, but in the microbial world they sustain. The porous charcoal, known as biochar, acts like a coral reef for beneficial bacteria and fungi, creating a self-renewing nutrient cycle that modern fertilizers cannot match. We can mix the same components, charcoal, bone, and manure, in a lab, but our attempts consistently fall short. The soil we create lacks the same resilient structure and long-term fertility. It seems the original process was not a single act of mixing, but a slow, managed cultivation, a symbiotic relationship between human waste management, agriculture, and fire that fostered a unique and enduring soil ecosystem. What profound ecological wisdom did these cultures possess that we, with all our technology, have overlooked? They were not just farmers, they were planetary engineers on a micro scale, creating a legacy in the ground that outlasted their temples and tools. This ability to fundamentally alter and enhance the natural world invites us to look for other ancient interventions, perhaps ones written not in soil, but in the very air and light around us. High in the Andes, the stone walls of Machu Picchu stand as a silent testament to a construction miracle. These are not merely stacked rocks, but a colossal, three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle carved from granite. Enormous blocks, some weighing more than 50 tons, are fitted together with such hairline precision that you cannot force a razor blade between them. The Inca accomplished this without iron tools, without the wheel, and without a single drop of mortar to fill the gaps. They built for eternity, and they succeeded. Archaeologists have long proposed logical methods to explain this feat. Perhaps they hammered the hard granite with even harder stones like hematite, patiently pecking away to shape each face. Others suggest they used sand and water as an abrasive, sawing through the rock with a simple cord, a process that would have consumed immense time and labor. Yet when modern builders try these techniques, the results are telling. They can shape the stone, yes, but they cannot replicate the flawless, interlocking joints. The experimental blocks fit, but they do not fuse into a single, seismic-resistant structure. So what secret did the Inca masons possess that we are missing? Could they have used a plant-based chemical compound, a lost solvent that temporarily softened the surface of the granite, allowing them to mold it like clay before it hardened back to its original strength? Or did they master a form of acoustic resonance, tapping each stone with precision hammers until they found a perfect harmonic match, a sonic key that ensured two blocks would lock together? The true method is a ghost, leaving no tool marks, no residue, and no written instructions behind. This leads to the next logical and equally baffling step in the process. How did they lift these perfectly shaped monoliths into place, maneuvering them up steep mountain slopes and onto their prepared foundations? The colossal stones of ancient monuments did not raise themselves. Modern engineers staring up at the Great Pyramid are often left with a single, pressing question. How did they lift millions of these blocks, some weighing 70 tons, to such impossible heights? The prevailing theory for generations has involved immense, straight ramps made of earth and brick, stretching for miles across the desert. But the sheer volume of such a ramp would have rivaled the pyramid itself, a construction project of staggering redundancy. Other, more elegant ideas have emerged. Perhaps the builders used a spiraling ramp that corkscrewed up the pyramid's sides, a more efficient but incredibly complex path requiring precise geometry to maintain a stable incline. Then there is the theory of the shaduf, a simple counterweighted lever used even today to lift water. Could an array of these devices, operated by teams of workers, have hoisted stones from one tier to the next in a slow, rhythmic dance? Engineers like Mark Lehner have actually tested these methods. They find that the techniques are possible, yes, but the sheer scale of human labor required is almost beyond comprehension. Without a system of compound pulleys to multiply force, a feat the Greeks would later master, the work would have been brutally inefficient. This is where the mystery deepens. The real lost machine may not have been a device of wood and rope, but something far more complex. It was the organizational skill to coordinate tens of thousands of workers, to house them, feed them, and orchestrate their labor with the precision of a symphony. This was a social machine of breathtaking sophistication. What management techniques did the ancient overseers employ to ensure that quarriers, haulers, and setters all worked in perfect harmony for decades? How did they maintain morale and prevent the logistical chaos that would doom any modern project of similar scale? The pyramids stand not just as tombs of kings, but as monuments to a forgotten science of human coordination. This profound understanding of systems and the human body leads us to wonder if the same meticulous skill was applied not just to building with stone, but to healing the flesh itself. The same hands that shaped stone and forged steel also held tools designed to heal the human body with astonishing precision. Wrapped in the volcanic ash of Pompeii, archaeologists have uncovered a surgeon's kit containing instruments that look as if they belong in a modern operating theater. There are finely balanced bronze scalpels, complex forceps for extracting arrowheads, and even a vaginal speculum made of bronze that is almost identical in form to the tools used by gynecologists today. These were not crude implements but masterpieces of medical engineering designed for specific and delicate tasks. Medical historians like Professor Lawrence Blickes, who has studied these artifacts in depth, point out that the Romans performed cataract surgery with a procedure known as couching. Using a fine, needle-like instrument, a skilled surgeon would carefully displace the clouded lens of the eye, restoring a measure of sight. They even practiced trepanation, the drilling of a hole in the human skull, and skeletal evidence shows that patients often survived the ordeal, with bone growth indicating a full recovery. We can hold the actual bone drills and saws they used, but the full context of their operating rooms is lost to us. How did they manage the pain? Historical texts mention soporific sponges soaked in mixtures of opium and mandrake, but the exact recipes and their effectiveness are a mystery. How did they prevent infection in a world without germ theory? They practiced wound cleaning with vinegar and wine, but the true depth of their understanding of hygiene is unclear. The most profound question is how they achieved such anatomical precision without X-rays or any form of internal imaging. Their knowledge must have come from extensive, hands-on dissection, a practice that was often frowned upon but clearly undertaken by the most advanced practitioners. This medical prowess was not an isolated field, but deeply intertwined with the chemical arts of the ancient apothecary, where the line between medicine, poison, and ritual was a frontier of its own. The same hands that performed delicate surgeries also perfected the art of preservation, a chemical mastery that defied the natural process of decay for thousands of years. The Egyptian embalmer was not merely a mortician, but a chemist of the highest order, working with a complex pharmacopoeia of natural substances. Ancient texts and tomb paintings describe a meticulous process involving resins, oils, and salts, but the precise recipes, the exact proportions and preparation methods were a sacred secret passed down within guilds and never fully recorded. Modern chemists have used gas chromatography and mass spectrometry to analyze the residues on mummies, identifying ingredients like cedar oil, juniper resin, beeswax, and the salt known as natron. We know the components, yet when we combine them today, the results are inconsistent. Our modern attempts at mummification often fail to achieve the same leathery, intact perfection seen in mummies that are 4,000 years old. The secret may not have been in a single magical ingredient, but in the entire ritualistic and environmental context. The timing of each application, the specific temperature and humidity of the workshop, the sequence in which the compounds were applied, all of this was part of the formula. Embalmers may have understood that certain resins, when heated and applied in a specific order, would polymerize, forming a plastic-like shield against bacteria and moisture. What profound, hands-on knowledge of organic chemistry did these ancient practitioners hold? Knowledge that turned a body into a permanent artifact. This sophisticated command of chemical transformation suggests a world where science and ritual were one, a world capable of manipulating matter on a fundamental level. Such mastery over the properties of materials inevitably extended beyond preservation into the realm of manipulating light itself. A small piece of polished rock crystal, unearthed from the ruins of the Assyrian palace at Nimrud, holds a secret as clear as its own form. Dated to around 750 years before the Common Era, this oval-shaped artifact, known as the Nimrud lens, is ground in a way that gives it a distinct focal length. Discovered by the archaeologist Austin Henry Layard in the 1840s, it was found among a treasure of crystal and glass objects, initially catalogued as an ornamental inlay, perhaps for furniture or a piece of jewelry. But its shape is telling, a form that could, however crudely, concentrate light or magnify a small object. Modern opticians who have examined it confirm that its focal properties are real, though imperfect. It could focus sunlight to a point hot enough to ignite tinder, or it could magnify, perhaps tripling the size of a tiny cuneiform character for an aging scribe. The debate over its true purpose has never been settled. Was it merely a decorative cabochon, a burnished stone for a wealthy noble, or was it a functional component of an ancient toolkit? The grinding techniques required to achieve even this crude lens are not well documented for the period, suggesting a level of lapidary skill that was rare, if not unique. If it was indeed a lens, it stands alone, a single data point in a vast emptiness. So we are left to wonder, was this object an isolated experiment, a curiosity? Or was it part of a larger, lost system of observation, a component in a device for surveying or even early astronomy that has since crumbled to dust? This optical enigma forces us to consider the possibility that ancient artisans were not just shaping stone for beauty, but for sight, manipulating light itself to extend the reach of the human eye. The desire to see more clearly, to bring distant things near or make the tiny visible, is a fundamental step toward understanding, a step that inevitably leads to the next great challenge, the need to communicate that understanding across impossible distances. These bundles of knotted cords, known as quippers, were the Inca Empire's nervous system. Far more than simple counting tools, they were a sophisticated data storage technology, a physical internet of colored strings that recorded everything from tax obligations and census data to the epic narratives of their history. Each quipu was a complex assembly of pendant cords hanging from a main strand, with knots tied in distinct positions and styles. The type of knot, its specific location on the cord, and even the color and spin of the string itself all carried distinct meanings. Researchers like Professor Gary Urton of Harvard University have proposed that this system operated on a binary-like logic, a series of yes or no questions built into the physical structure of the knots and cords. We can see the patterns, we can count the knots, but we are essentially looking at a computer's hard drive without the operating system to read the files. Modern efforts to crack the code involve creating massive digital databases of every known quipu, searching for statistical patterns that might reveal grammatical rules. These databases are our best hope, yet they highlight the fundamental problem. We are missing the living, breathing context, the cultural logic that gave these knots their full meaning. A knot representing a llama in one context might symbolize a unit of time or a deity in another, depending on the color of the string and the knowledge of the quipu reader, the quipukamayok. To truly replicate this as a functioning system, we would need to understand the world through Inca eyes, to grasp the conceptual framework that allowed them to translate complex stories and administrative data into a tactile, three-dimensional language. How did they encode a treaty, a harvest report, or a mythic poem using nothing but string? The quipu stands as a monumental achievement in information science, a reminder that writing is not the only path to complex thought, and that some forms of knowledge are so deeply woven into a culture that when that culture is transformed, the knowledge unravels, leaving only the silent knots behind. This challenge of reconstructing a lost system of organization from its physical remains pushes us toward an even grander puzzle, one written not in string, but in the alignment of stone and sky. These Babylonian tablets hold mathematical secrets carved in clay, a calendar of the cosmos written in cuneiform. While Greek philosophers pondered the nature of celestial spheres, Mesopotamian astronomers were engaged in a different kind of genius, one of pure, relentless calculation. Their goal was not to explain why the heavens moved, but to predict with absolute certainty when they would. They tracked the repeating cycles of the moon and planets, recording their positions for generations until patterns emerged from the data. They discovered that celestial events like lunar eclipses often repeated in a long cycle known as the Saros cycle, a period of approximately 18 years. But their true mastery lay in applying arithmetic sequences, a step-by-step numerical method that could forecast the future position of a planet by adding or subtracting a fixed number to its previous position. They built complex, layered sequences that could account for the apparent speeding up and slowing down of planets in the sky, all without ever needing the concept of a sun-centered solar system. Historians of science like Otto Neugebauer, who dedicated his life to decoding these tablets, express a profound admiration for their accuracy. He noted that their computations for the moon's motion were often more precise than those of Copernicus over 1,000 years later. We can follow their step-by-step calculations on the clay, the numbers adding up to a correct prediction, yet the intuitive leap that first revealed these patterns remains locked in the past. We see the output, but the cognitive software that produced it is a mystery. What mental models allowed them to see order in the chaos where we see only raw data? Did they visualize these sequences geometrically, or was their mind so attuned to numerical rhythm that the patterns simply revealed themselves? This was predictive analytics on a grand scale, achieved through a form of abstract thinking that modern science, for all its power, cannot fully reverse engineer. Their success forces us to ask if we have lost a certain kind of intellectual intuition, a way of reasoning with numbers that was less about underlying mechanics and more about perceiving the deep, repeating rhythms of the universe itself. This incredible talent for precise, functional prediction finds a strange and beautiful parallel not in the stars, but in the human hands that learn to capture light itself. Hero of Alexandria's genius extended far beyond steam engines into a world of pure mechanical storytelling. He described entire miniature theaters, self-contained stages where automated actors performed entire plays without a human hand in sight. One of his most famous designs was a device that reenacted the myth of Nauplius, a tragic tale of revenge at sea. The theater would open to reveal a fleet of tiny ships crafted from wood and metal. As the play began, weights would drop, causing the ships to move across a painted ocean. Then, at the dramatic climax, a hidden mechanism would release, causing figures of dolphins to leap from the waves, while a separate system using falling pellets on a drum created the sound of thunder and crashing waves. Hero wrote in his work Automata that the goal was to produce wonder and amazement, achieving through mechanics what seemed possible only by magic. We have his words, his detailed lists of parts and assembly instructions, yet a perfect reconstruction eludes us. Modern engineers can build devices that follow the letter of his plans, but they often lack the seamless, magical performance described in the texts. The true secret was not just in the gears and levers, but in the master artisan's touch, the precise adjustment of a string's tension, or the careful balancing of a weight to create a fluid, lifelike motion. The entertainment relied on that element of surprise, a craftsmanship so refined it became invisible. This makes us wonder, were these intricate performances the distant ancestors of modern robotics, the first steps toward machines that could mimic life itself? That ambition to blur the line between the mechanical and the living finds its most intimate expression in devices designed not for spectacle, but for healing the human body. The human body itself became a landscape for ancient engineers to master. In the quiet halls of Chinese medical academies, students once studied from life-sized bronze figures, their surfaces a web of lines and points marking the body's hidden pathways. These models were the maps for a practice thousands of years old, a system of healing built not on anatomy as we know it, but on the flow of a vital energy called Qi. Primary tools were deceptively simple, slender needles of gold and silver, and the smoldering herb known as moxa, applied in a technique called moxibustion. The goal was to correct imbalances, to unblock stagnant energy and restore the body's natural harmony. Modern science, armed with fMRIs and biochemistry, is now peering into this ancient art. Researchers can observe that inserting a needle into a specific point like the Hegu point on the hand triggers a measurable cascade in the brain, releasing natural opioids and changing blood flow. We can document the neurological and anti-inflammatory effects, yet the original framework of meridians and energy channels remains elusive. It does not correspond directly to our maps of nerves or blood vessels. Master practitioners whose skill is honed over decades can achieve remarkable results, alleviating chronic pain and treating conditions that baffle Western medicine. But their knowledge is often intuitive, a feel for the body's subtle rhythms that is nearly impossible to codify into a textbook. So were these bronze models depicting a literal network, or were they a brilliant metaphor for a complex biological system we are only beginning to decode? Did the ancients perceive interconnections within the body, a web of bioelectrical or facial communication, that our own science is still struggling to map? This holistic vision saw the human form as an integral part of a larger whole, a single node in a vast living system. This profound connection between the internal balance of the body and the external balance of the world leads us directly to the grandest scale of ancient intervention, the deliberate engineering of entire environments. A terraced mountain of greenery rose in the heart of a desert empire, its very existence a paradox of engineering. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon stand as one of the seven wonders, described as a lush, ascending paradise watered by a hidden, mechanical heart. Ancient accounts, like those from the Greek historian Strabo, tell of a massive screw pump, a device later attributed to Archimedes that lifted water from the Euphrates River to the garden's highest tier. Other sources suggest a complex chain pump system where buckets mounted on a continuous loop were drawn up a vertical shaft, powered by the labor of unseen workers turning a massive treadmill. This was not a simple well, but a perpetual hydraulic machine designed to defy a dry climate. Yet for all the vivid descriptions, a profound mystery remains. No archaeological evidence for the gardens has ever been found in Babylon itself, leading some scholars to argue they were a poetic invention, a legend that grew in the telling. If they were real, the logistical challenge was staggering. Recreating such a system today using only period technology is purely speculative. How could they have lifted the enormous volume of water required, day after day, to sustain such lush growth against the relentless Mesopotamian sun? The water would have needed to flow constantly, not just to the top but to every terrace, requiring an intricate network of channels and seals to prevent precious water from being lost to evaporation or seepage long before it reached the roots. This was more than a garden, it was a statement of absolute power over nature, a hydraulic declaration that a king could make the desert bloom. The ghost of this magnificent feat connects directly to other wonders where water itself became the primary engine of ancient ambition. This cosmic egg was not merely a poetic image, but a symbol of profound mechanical potential. The Orphic hymns, ancient Greek texts of mystic power, described the universe itself hatching from a primordial egg, a perfect sphere containing the seeds of all creation. Philosophers like Plato wrestled with these ideas, seeing in the egg a powerful allegory for a self-contained, harmonious cosmos. Yet where does metaphor end and mechanics begin? Some scholars now speculate that this elegant concept may have inspired physical models, intricate orreries crafted from bronze and wood that mimicked this celestial egg. These hypothetical devices would have been spheres within spheres, gears turning to simulate the orbits of planets, all encased in a shell representing the fixed stars. No such machine has survived if it ever existed, leaving its reality to the realm of inspired conjecture. The true power of the Orphic egg lies in this very ambiguity. It represents a worldview where myth and machine were not separate categories, but intertwined languages for describing reality. Could the symbolic blueprint of a cosmic egg have guided an inventor's hand, providing a philosophical framework for building a model of the heavens? When a culture believes the universe is born from a mechanism of divine perfection, does that not naturally lead to the ambition of recreating that mechanism in miniature? This blurring of lines forces a deeper question about how we interpret the past. Are we too quick to separate their spiritual symbols from their engineering diagrams, when perhaps the most advanced ancient thinkers saw them as two sides of the same coin? The ghost of the cosmic egg challenges us to see their mythology not as fantasy, but as a different kind of technical drawing, one where the boundaries between the born and the built were beautifully and intentionally porous. The true machine lost to history may not have been made of bronze or stone, but of papyrus and ink. Scattered across the ancient world were vast repositories of knowledge, the great libraries of Alexandria and Baghdad, where scrolls detailing every known mechanical art were collected and studied. The burning of the Library of Alexandria is a tragedy etched into our collective memory, but it was not a singular event. Over centuries, countless other archives met similar fates through war, neglect, or simple decay. Historians like Luciano Canfora have estimated that well over 90% of all classical writings have vanished forever. We are left with mere fragments, scattered references in surviving texts that hint at a vast ocean of understanding we can no longer access. This is not just a loss of books, but a profound cultural amnesia. The intricate knowledge required to forge a Damascus sword or mix Roman concrete was not held in a single, simple recipe. It existed within a rich intellectual ecosystem of commentaries, apprenticeships, and theoretical texts that are all gone. We are trying to reconstruct a symphony from a few stray notes. The foundational context for these machines has been erased. So many of these devices cannot be recreated, not because they were impossible, but because we are missing the first principles, the underlying philosophy of their design that was carefully recorded in those lost archives. What could our world look like today if those libraries had survived intact? What heights of engineering might we have achieved with 2,000 years of accumulated knowledge instead of starting over from near zero? This staggering loss of collective wisdom is the silent backdrop to every mystery we have explored, a ghost that haunts our every attempt to rebuild. Our journey ends where it began, in the quiet contemplation of a corroded gear or a silent stone, each a testament to a forgotten chapter in the story of human genius. We have wandered through a gallery of 34 marvels, from the celestial clockwork of the Antikythera Mechanism to the phantom shelves of the Library of Alexandria. These are not merely broken artifacts, but profound gaps in our collective memory, reminding us that the path of innovation is not a straight, ascending line. It is a spiral where knowledge is gained, cherished, lost to the tides of time, and then, sometimes centuries later, painfully and brilliantly rediscovered. This cyclical nature of discovery challenges our most fundamental assumptions about progress. We often believe we stand at the pinnacle of technology, yet these lost machines whisper that entire schools of thought, whole philosophies of engineering, have vanished from the earth. They force us to look deeper into the past, not as a primitive prelude to our own era, but as a landscape rich with alternative paths and solutions we have yet to reimagine. The philosopher George Santayana offered a timeless warning that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. In this context, his words carry a new weight. We are not just condemned to repeat old mistakes, but to relearn old truths, to waste centuries solving puzzles that ancient minds had already cracked. Let these silent machines, then, be our motivation. Let them inspire in us a fierce desire to preserve our own fragile knowledge and to explore our heritage with renewed humility and wonder. We now pass the conversation to you. Which of these enigmas captured your imagination most profoundly? Was it the self-healing Roman concrete, the singing wind organ of Hero, or the silent south-pointing chariot? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if your curiosity has been sparked, subscribe for more journeys into the heart of history's greatest mysteries. Thank you for watching, and may your own sense of wonder never, ever fade.